From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Without these memos, the entire exercise or torture probably would not have taken place.
He did not cooperate fully in terms of interrogations until after waterboarding.
These techniques, from an operational perspective, are slow, ineffective, unreliable.
These photos may only have a chilling effect on future investigations of detainee abuse.
Torture. President Obama does an about-face and says he won't release the torture photos. He also plans to revive the military tribunal system. And Congress now votes not to fund the closing of Guantanamo. Today, we spend the hour with New Yorker journalist Jane Mayer, author of The Dark Side, the inside story of how the war on terror turned into a war on American ideals, and British barrister Philippe Sands, author of Torture Team, Rumsfeld's Memo, and the Betrayal of American Values. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Senate Democrats are refusing to finance the closure of the U.S. military prison at Guantanamo until the Obama administration submits a detailed plan. On Tuesday, Democratic leaders said they would reject an $80 million request to relocate Guantanamo's 240 prisoners and vowed to block the transfer of any prisoners into the United States. The move follows a similar action by House Democrats last week. It would mean delaying President Obama's promise to close the Guantanamo prison by at least several months. The Senate has voted to impose new regulation on the credit card industry. The measure would give credit card companies a 9-month deadline to comply with new rules, including a 45-day notice and an explanation before raising customers' interest rates. They'd also be forced to post agreements on the Internet and allow online bill payments without added fees. The measure is weaker than original versions that included an amendment to cap interest rates at 15%. Other defeated proposals would have protected consumers from spending money they don't have and limiting how companies impose new fees. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports banks are now considering a series of measures to recoup their anticipated lost profits from the new rules. The moves include imposing new annual fees and curbing cash-back and rewards programs to sterling borrowers. The House is expected to vote on the credit card bill as early as today. A final version could be held up by an amendment added to the Senate bill that would allow people to carry loaded guns in national parks. House leaders say they might vote separately on that proposal. The Obama administration is reportedly mulling proposals for a new regulatory commission overseeing financial products and services, including mortgages, credit cards, and mutual funds. The proposed commission would be tasked with ensuring loans and other financial products are structured and marketed fairly. President Obama has unveiled new national emissions and mileage requirements for cars and light trucks. The rules aim to cut emissions by 30% and require passenger cars to average 39 miles per gallon by 2016. On Tuesday, Obama noted the rules are the first to impose federal regulations on car emissions in the United States.
For the first time in history, we have set in motion a national policy aimed at both increasing gas mileage and decreasing greenhouse gas pollution for all new trucks and cars sold in the United States of America.
The White House estimates the regulations would reduce emissions of greenhouse gases by 900 million metric tons over the lifetime of more efficient vehicles. Appearing with Obama at the White House, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger praised the new rules.
We are very happy that this has happened because it means a reduction of 1/3 of greenhouse gases and 1/3 of oil consumption. As you have heard the president say, this is reducing oil consumption by 1.8 billion gallons of oil. So this is staggering. As I said, it's an equivalent of taking 55 million cars off the road.
A joint American-Russian commission has concluded the proposed U.S. missile defense system in Eastern Europe would be ineffective against the types of Iranian missiles it would purportedly aim to stop. The Bush administration launched the program under the pretense it would protect Europe against Iran, but it's widely seen as a far-strike weapon. The Commission of U.S.-Russia Scientists bolsters that perception. In their report for the East-West Institute, the scientists say Iran is highly unlikely to produce a nuclear-tipped missile, and the proposed defense shield wouldn't be able to stop one anyway. The scientists say Iran is years away from producing a nuclear warhead and could only do so with major and highly visible foreign assistance. It also notes Iran would be further unlikely to launch an attack because doing so would assure its own destruction through U.S. retaliation. The Obama administration so far continued with the missile program, but hinted it could be open to its cancellation. In Sri Lanka, the government continues to prevent aid workers from reaching some 300,000 people displaced in the fight with Tamil Tiger rebels. Earlier this week, the Sri Lankan government declared victory after a 26-year war. The Times of London report Sri Lanka's blocking the UN from reaching government-run camps housing refugees. There are fears camp populations will be hit with an outbreak of contagious diseases, including hepatitis and dysentery. In the occupied territories, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has sworn in a new cabinet to head the Palestinian Authority. Former Prime Minister Salam Fayyad was reinstated to his old post, along with several other members of the Fatah faction. Fayyad denied reports of renewed talks between Palestinian officials and Israeli leaders, despite ongoing Israeli settlement expansion in the West Bank.
I don't think it's really the right time to be talking about negotiation, when in fact there are understandings and agreements that have been reached that require immediate implementation. I don't think Mr. Netanyahu set the right tone by clearly avoiding any reference to the possibility of a solution concept that has become a matter of international consensus, namely the two-state solution.
Meanwhile, in Gaza, Hamas spokesperson Fawzi Barhoum rejected the cabinet as illegitimate amidst ongoing national unity talks brokered by Egypt.
The
formation of the government by Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank will reinforce the political chaos, judicial and legislative, which he is carrying out over there in the West Bank. This is considered to be a deliberate sabotage of the internal Palestinian dialogue and threatens negotiations slated to take place in the future in Cairo.
In Afghanistan, 2 Americans have been killed in a roadside bombing near Kabul. The Pentagon says the victims were a U.S. soldier and a military contractor. In other news from Afghanistan, the Pentagon says 4 U.S. contractors with the company formerly known as Blackwater weren't authorized to carry weapons when they fired on an approaching vehicle in Kabul earlier this month. At least 1 Afghan civilian was killed and another 2 wounded in the attack. The contractors were off duty at the time and had been reportedly drinking. The contractors now say Blackwater officials had supplied them with the guns in violation of their military contract. In Spain, lawmakers are trying to block their judiciary's war crimes investigations of foreign governments, including the United States. On Tuesday, Spain's Congress voted to limit judges' jurisdiction to cases with a clear Spanish connection. Spain's National Court is currently investigating 13 foreign cases under the principle of universal jurisdiction. They include the torture of U.S. prisoners at Guantanamo and Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip. The Spanish vote follows weeks of pressure by foreign governments seeking to curb the investigations. It's unclear whether the vote will apply to the current cases or only to future ones. Newly disclosed financial statements show 2 top Obama administration envoys received hundreds of thousands of dollars in consulting and speaking fees last year. Dennis Ross, who serves as special advisor for Iran, received more than $200,000 in speaking fees from pro-Israeli government groups. Ross refused to disclose how much he earned for the appearances on the cable news network Fox News. Meanwhile, Obama's envoy for Pakistan and Afghanistan, Richard Holbrooke, reported $1.7 million in income last year. Holbrooke's earnings included more than $300,000 as a consultant for Coca-Cola and $10,000 for serving as a director on the board of the bailed-out insurance giant AIG. A U.S. priest who helped expose abuses by the Brazilian military dictatorship during the 1970s has been killed in Guatemala. The Reverend Lawrence Rosabal died on Monday in a robbery attack by masked gunmen. He was 74 years old. In 1977, Rosebow hand-delivered a letter to First Lady Rosalind Carter detailing his abuse at the hands of Brazilian forces helping to bring international attention on the Brazilian dictatorship. And the Uruguayan writer Mario Benedetti has died at the age of 88. A popular novelist and playwright, Benedetti was also an outspoken political commentator criticizing U.S. intervention in Latin America and the Cuban embargo. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.